Now, if you guys understand how to place things together in a scene that makes it look really, really good, and you understand why animations are so important for us as editors, it's time to keep improving our animations. And as I mentioned in the last course, the second big part of making good animations is your colors. And today we're going to be talking about color theory. So let's go ahead and break this down. We're going to be talking about the two color theory. We're going to be talking about background and foreground colors. And we're also going to be taking a few scenes and making them look better with just basic color applications. So with this being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. So how do we use colors inside of animations? Colors actually play such a big role because when you combine placement with colors, that's honestly the only two things you need to look like a high quality editor. The only two things you need to look like a very premium, prestige, high quality editor is literally just good placement and good coloration. And if you just master both of these, you're going to be amazing at video editing right off the bat, and you're going to just have such a good start when it comes to animations. So placement we've already covered, but now when it comes to colors, let's talk about them. The first thing you need to understand is that in an edit, you should always have consistency with the colors, okay? So you should generally, whenever you start an edit, you should always choose two colors to go with, and that for that reason, when I made this edit, I went with the red initially, but I eventually, changed this thing to blue. So I went with the blue and white colorway for this. I didn't have one that's blue and one that's yellow and one that's whatever. I only went with the blue and white, and for that reason it looks very good. So first thing to keep in mind, only use two colors whenever you're editing, 2 or 3, but we'll get into 3 colors later on. For now, just use 2, and just choose 2 colors and stick with them. How do you choose 2 colors? Well, this is where your color wheel is useful. I'm going to try and pull this thing up so that you guys can see it, but a color wheel, try and show this to you guys. This is what a color wheel looks like. A color wheel is kind of different associations that colors have with each other. And for example, if you chose a base color of white, you can choose whichever one of these. So there are 2 colors that you use when you're video editing. You've got the base color and the special color. The base color is a color that is used for like all of your scenes, right? It's the one that is standard. And then the special color is used for whatever you want to make something stand out and you want to bring the viewer's attention directly to it. So when you're animating, you need to always think of just 2 colors. I've got my base color and I've got my special color. For my first scene over here, which you guys saw, I used a base color of white and I used a special color of blue. And you guys notice with the white, it looks like a simple standard white, and the blue, it is actually attractive to the eye and it makes you actually want to look into it. And so it's the same thing with animations. Whenever you're doing animations, you should always use a base color and a special color. So with this being said, what kind of base colors and special colors work? Base colors are just white and black or any light shade of any color. So if you're using, and you can think of these as backgrounds. So if you have a background that is, for example, a light color, you would want to use a foreground color that is a different, like a darker color. If you had a background that is like a dark gray, for example, that's a base color. Then you can use something like a blue as a foreground color, as your second color, which is the color that is very special. And the best way to understand these is to first understand how backgrounds and foregrounds work. The concept of backgrounds and foregrounds works like so. Your background color should always be dull, simple, and the exact opposite of your foreground color. Your foreground color has to be the opposite of your background color. And this is what brings me to this point over here. My background color is a dark blue and my foreground color is a light blue. The reason these both work together is because both of them are blue. They are both very consistent. Even if I went with a background of gray and a blue up front, this would also work because it's only 2 colors. But if I went with a background of yellow and a foreground of red and another scene that's blue, then all of a sudden everything is getting mixed up. However, if I just use consistency in my colors, I'm going to go a long way. So what about backgrounds and foregrounds? The one thing you need to understand is in editing, you always have 2 kind of levels to your scenes. You have the thing which the viewer needs to focus on and the thing which just fills up the background. And the thing which fills up the background is either A-roll, B-roll, or whatever background you've created. And the thing which the viewer needs to focus on is the focus of your animation. So when using colors, whatever colors you choose, even if you end up choosing something like, yellow, for example, right? If you want to do a background in yellow, just make sure that the background is either darker or lighter yellow, and then make sure that the foreground is opposite. So if you used a background of lighter yellow, you want to make sure that the foreground is a darker yellow. Let me show you guys an exact example of this. Let's say we didn't decide to go with this scene. Let's say we went with this scene, and for these colors, we decided to go with gray and red. Now, if I leave the background as it is in gray and I go over to my YouTube PNG and I set this thing to a red, for example, something like this, and I set my my text to a red as well, like so. As you guys can see, this looks solid. This looks good. This looks like a good animation setup. It's a basic background with a basic foreground, and they have opposing colors. Now, if I decided to go with red for my background, which obviously is going to look better, I'm going to go with a darker red like this. And for the edges, I'm going to go, I'll teach you guys how to make this background in After Effects, so don't you worry about it. I'm going to go with a darker red like this for the edges. All of a sudden, this still looks really good because I used a darker red in the background and a brighter red in the foreground. Now, let's say I used a lighter red in the background. Let's say I selected this and I went with a very light red, like this, like a very light whitish with red, right? With red hints, like so. And the same thing for this. I used a very light, very light color with, let's just go with a whiter color, like so. If I used a reddish light background, then my foreground cannot be red because now it's too bright. Now all of a sudden my foreground has to be a dark red, like this. And all of a sudden this text also has to be a dark red, like this. And when I do this, obviously you guys can see they both look good. Like this is its own animation style. Sorry, this scene doesn't look the best. It's not the best example of it. Let me quickly just fix this up. So yeah, the color that we used here is way too reddish. Yeah, but you guys get the concept. If we used a lighter color in the background, a darker color up front in the foreground would look better. Right, so notice how the difference between this scene and this scene is just that the background in here is a darker color and foreground is a lighter color, and over here the background is a lighter color and this is a darker color. Let's move over to this scene over here which we created. Since the foreground is white, I'm obviously going to go with a darker color in the background. So going with a gray, right, like just choosing the white, it's really as simple as this. It's like my background, if my foreground color is going to be white, I choose white and I just go darker. So I'm going to go to my color here. I go, okay, this is white, and I'm just going to go darker than white like this. And we are good to go. Awesome. And for my third scene here, I've got two icons and a background. Let's try both of them. Let's try, for example, using the color blue real quick. And then let's just try using a bunch of different colors and showing you guys how you could do it. You always have two options. And I'm just going to cut this whole thing into two. Okay. The first one's going to be darker colors. Second one's going to be lighter colors. Let's say I decided to go with a blue theme. I would go with a dark blue for the background. So let's change the fill. You literally go blue and then you go dark. It's literally that simple, and just go as dark as humanly possible. And then for this one also, I would just go same blue and just dark, right? There we go. And that is a blue background. There we go. And then for the foreground, then I'm going to use this as a light blue. Now I can just do something like this, right? I can add this color. And for this one, it would also work like this. Awesome. There we go. Amazing. And that's as simple as it gets. Now I'm going to show you guys the second section here. If I decided to go with a lighter background and a darker foreground, let's go with a lighter blue here. So we're going to go with the same lighter blue which we made. So light blue over here. And then on top of it, I'm going to make this vignette a lighter blue. I'll again teach you guys how to make this in the After Effects Masterclass. And there we go. Now we have a lighter background. Now I'm just going to change these guys to darker blues. Why? Because the background is lighter, and so the foreground has to be darker, like this. There we go. That's one. And this is a very dark color, so it's not really supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be more like this, but yeah, something like this. Let me just eyedrop it. There we go. We are good. And there we go. Look at just how much nice this looks. Look how nice that looks. So both of them are the same exact scene. Just one of them uses a light background and a dark foreground, and the other one uses a dark background and a light foreground. Now, whichever one you like is based on personal preference and based on the brand style you're going with. But with that being said, that is pretty much everything that has to do with color theory. All you need to understand is you always need to stick to two consistent colors. Like for this edit, I would just use like a dark blue and a light blue. Those are my two colors. And I would just alternate between them. Like if you're going with a dark background, I'll just go with a dark blue. And if I'm going with a light foreground, I'm just going to go with a light blue. Or whereas if I'm going with a light background, I'm going to go with a light blue. And if I'm going with a dark foreground, I'm going to go with a dark blue. So whenever you choose these two colors for your edits, just stay consistent with them and just make sure you stick with them throughout the entire edit. One more thing I do need to explain about colors, and this is the biggest mistake I see beginners make. When you're choosing colors, because it's the first time you see this many bright colors, you go and you choose the brightest, most vibrant color out there. And this just doesn't look good. So whenever you're choosing colors, I want to teach you guys, and I'll talk about this in the rule of rarity. I want to teach you guys, never go for the most vibrant color. Either go for more grayish options. So instead of a dark blue like this, just go with a grayish blue, or go with lighter options. Instead of a light white, just go with a light white blue. Okay, this always just turn out better. I'm gonna show you guys a quick example. So I'm gonna duplicate this thing over here. So this is what happens if you go with more dulled out colors. And this is what's about to happen if we go with vibrant colors. So here, if I went to extremes and I went with a really dark blue, and then I went with a really like light blue for this, sorry, dark blue for that. And then here I just decided to go with a complete blue, and then here I just decided to go with a complete blue as well. Like this looks good, but this just looks better, right? This looks solid, but this just looks way better. And for that reason, one thing about colors is you always never want to be on extremes. You don't ever want to be on extremes. You never want to be the most vibrant color. You never want to have the darkest color. You want to have it almost extreme, but not perfect, right? Imperfection is what makes animations so beautiful. And I kid you not, guys, imperfections is what makes animations super good. And so when you're choosing colors, don't go for the perfect colors. Don't go for the vibrant red, right? Go for the less vibrant one. And I'm gonna show you guys another example of this. So I'm gonna quickly duplicate this section here. And we're gonna do the same thing for red. Let's go with a light red background and a dark red. When I'm choosing my light red, I don't go for the vibrant red. I go for a very, very pale, like grayed out red. It's an imperfect red. And it's imperfect, but it still just looks really, really good. I'm just gonna go a bit darker on these edges as well. Like that. So there we go. We have a light red background, and our foreground is just going to be dark red. So we're going to go red, and we're just going to go dark like this. Notice I don't go with the like vibrant dark red. I go with the pale and kind of disgusting dark red, just because imperfections just make it look so much better. And look at how nice this scene is. Now let's do the exact opposite with reverse, right? Or let's do the exact opposite with yellow. So let's go with dark yellow background. So I'll just choose yellow like this. Yellow's over here, and I'm just gonna go for a dark yellow, and I'm not gonna go for the perfect dark yellow. I'm gonna go for a grayed out yellow like this, right? And I'm gonna get it more towards the orange just so that's it's more realistic. And then for the edges, I'm gonna go for a darker yellow. So I'll just choose that same color, and then literally just go for a darker yellow like this. And then for the foreground, I'm gonna use the same yellow, but just brighter. And I'm not gonna go with the brightest. I'm just gonna go with one that's slightly imperfect. And I'll do the same thing with this one, right? Either slightly white or slightly grayed out. And this just looks so much better. So as you guys can see, this is how you create really high quality scenes inside of Premiere Pro. And I highly advise that you do this, right? Just add yourself a background, add yourself some icons. And you don't even need the vignettes, which I created. Honestly, like you don't even need these. Even this just looks awesome, right? So just practicing on using colors like this, like which color combinations work the best for foregrounds and backgrounds, is always going to make you a much better editor, and it's going to help you understand things and make scenes look so much better. So with this being said, guys, when it comes down to colors, just remember two things. Use two consistent colors throughout your edit, and please stick to them. Don't change colors. And number two, the second important thing is when you're using color theory, just make sure that your background is always opposite to your foreground and there's contrast in there. The trick is contrast. The trick is if your background is dark, have your foreground be white, and use imperfect colors. Don't use perfect colors. So don't use colors like bright red or bright blue or bright yellow. Use the slightly white blue, use the slightly grayed out blue, use the ones which are imperfect, which look more realistic. So imperfections, guys, make animations look beautiful. So with this being said, once you understand color, placement, and animation theory, the last thing we got to talk about is the theory of rarity. And I'm going to discuss that with you guys in the course right after this, and then we can finally get into making some animations in Premiere Pro. So with this being said, guys, let's dive right into the theory of rarity. I'll see you guys in the next course.